last 58 years. So as the CEO for this business, I primarily look after the entire education space for Bajaj Capital Group. I work very closely with the promoters and in stepping up the entire financial education business. And when I talk about the financial education space, so ICFP, the college that I represent, the college that I take care of, I am extremely privileged, extremely honored to share that since 2002 we have been India's #1 and the largest CFP education provider in the country. So that's about the company that I represent. That's brief about me, who I am. Of you keep attending my webinars, keep attending our webinars coming here, so you know me. So I am not spending much time on introducing myself. I am very happy, extremely honored and glad to introduce the guest of the day today, the speaker of the day today. So we have a very knowledgeable, very renowned gentleman, Mr. Anupam Rungta, with us today. Now, Anupam happens to be an engineer academically, and then from there he changed his direction altogether. He went into finance. Though engineers coming to finance is not that rare, that's very common, by the way, because engineers, by virtue of their academic, they have analytical bent of mind. So finance is something that they are generally very good at. So Anupam went on to study finance, and he did CFA level 2 as well, and he completed CFP, Certified Financial Planner program from FPSB USA. And Anupam also happens to be a SEBI registered research analyst. But what Anupam is best known for is his brainchild, his proprietary program named as Mutual Fund Excellence Program. And that's something which Anupam has delivered not only in India, but for investment advisors and clients across the world, across multiple countries. So that's something which Anupam has kind of created on his own, and that's his trademark. He is well known, best known for Mutual Fund Excellence Program. Now, Mutual Fund Excellence Program is something which Anupam actually does independently, wherein people come and register and kind of study with him for 3-4 days that he will talk about at the end of the program. So on a very special request, I said, Anupam, that, buddy, why don't you come and kind of, I don't expect you to come present the whole program, but if you can give a glimpse of that, a very kind of capsule kind of a presentation to the lovely audience here, people who are willing to know about financial planning, about mutual funds, etc. So on that request, on that kind of note, we have invited Anupam to be here with us today. So I will hand over the talk to Anupam. Before that, just 2 more things, gentlemen. One, we have deliberately kept all of you on mute so that when Anupam speaks, you have absolute clarity in terms of what he's saying. But if you have questions, you can always write in the chat box. We will take up the questions, or you can raise hands using the Zoom panel, or at the end of Anupam's conversation, we will allow you to unmute one by one if you raise hands. So that way you will be able to talk to Anupam one by one and ask your questions. The second point, so the overall talk today is going to be in 2 parts. One where Anupam primarily talks about the topic of the day, the mistakes to avoid in mutual funds, and how as advisors you can create your USP around mutual fund advisory. So that's one that Anupam is going to talk. Second, followed by as soon as the part of Anupam's talk is over, we have the second part coming up where we will present the journey of mutual fund advisor, an MFD, to a complete financial planner. For how a mutual fund distributor MFD can be a complete financial planner, and what are the kind of roadmap. So that's what the talk is going to be today. So with that, setting the agenda, I hope I'm very clear. So with that, on that note, Anupam, once again, I welcome you and I thank you for joining us here today, Anupam. Next 1 hour, absolutely with you, and I am going to be a mere spectator, Anupam. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Rajesh, for inviting me and for the lovely introduction. And as you rightly pointed out, engineers actually do everything except engineering. So yeah, so that's what exactly I'm doing. Well, perfect. I'll just share my screen. Uh, is my voice loud and clear? Is video fine?
Absolutely yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely yes, Anupam. Yeah.
All right. So I'll not take much
So,
time in. Yeah.
Anupam,
Yeah.
just to tell you, so I have my team here, Krishan and Kanhaiya. So if at all the slide gets stuck up or something, these guys are there as well. So other than me, they are also there. So if there is any problem in the any issue with the whole presentation, they are here to help you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's
Okay.
great. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So I'll not take much time to introduce myself and all that. I will just straight away start with the presentation. Rajesh has already introduced me. I am a CFP and a SEBI registered research analyst. You can always go to my website, anupamroongta.com, after the session to know more about our work. So let's start with the day. So firstly, the topic as you can see is mistakes to avoid in mutual funds. Now, why are we talking about mistakes? Because this is what I believe, and this is what Warren Buffett said. He said, I really believe that it's better to learn from other people's mistakes as much as possible. So you save a lot of your time, energy, and resources, money, when you learn from others' mistakes. Right? So there are only two ways to learn. Right? One is you learn from others' mistakes, other is learn from your own mistake. Right? You learn from your own experience, and both are equally important, I would say. But the more you can shift towards learning from others' mistakes, you will save a lot of your resources. Yeah, and that's exactly what we'll do today. The 3 secrets of mutual funds, which you will take away at the end of this session. This is your takeaway for the day. Number 1, majority of the equity mutual fund categories are worthless and can be avoided. They're like many. It's like you go to a showroom. There are like thousands of show pieces sitting there. Not everything is worth to buy, right? You don't go and buy everything. Similarly, there are like tens of mutual fund categories and different kinds of schemes available. We'll see what you can avoid and why. We look at the why behind that. The second secret you will take away is looking at the past performance of a scheme beyond 10 years is meaningless. So you might have come across schemes which says this was launched 20 years back, 15 years back, 25 years back, and the returns since inception is 18% CAGR, 20% CAGR, 22% CAGR, and you get influenced by that. You know, it's a very good scheme, such a great performance, consistent performance over 15, 20, 25 years. I am saying beyond 10 years, it is meaningless. And I'll tell you why it is meaningless in today's session. And the third secret you will take away, which is quite unfortunate also, is that very few fund managers are investing their own money in the funds they manage. Though this will change with the new SEBI law, I'll talk about that as well. But as at present, the situation is not very not favorable for the investors. And we will see what you can do to check this data and ensure that you are putting the money in the right schemes. Yeah. All right, a couple of disclaimers. This session is only for education purpose. We will naturally talk about schemes and sectors in this session so that you get that practical experience and the value. But don't go and buy or go and take it as an advice to buy, sell, or hold. I mean, don't go tomorrow and start buying and selling mutual fund scheme based on this. This is for the learning purpose. You learn this and then you apply it the best way possible. Yeah. All right, let's begin. The first one, past performance. Just a second. All right, look at this chart. The NAV of a mutual fund scheme in 2000 was 100 rupees. Today in let's say end of 2020, it was 2,739. This is 18% compounded annual returns, right? Now let's assume, and please listen to this carefully. I'm assuming everything else has been taken care of. Everything else means every other parameter which you are supposed to look at while selecting a mutual fund scheme has been taken care of. And then you come across this data. This is one last data which you look at in terms of returns of the scheme. Tell me in the chat box, looking at this data and everything else has been taken care of, will you invest in the scheme, yes or no? Looking at this data, will you invest in the scheme? Everything else has been taken care of. Again, I'm repeating. Everything else has been taken care of. Will you look at this data and invest in the scheme? Okay, we're getting mixed responses. 50% type yes and no. Yeah. Category is also taken care of. Everything else means size of the fund, expense ratio, that whatever parameters are there, whatever you look at while selecting a mutual fund scheme, risk aspects, everything has been taken care of, right? Okay, I got the answer. Most of you are saying now yes, some of you are saying no as well. Now let me give you one more data. In the first 10 years, the returns of this scheme was 27% CAGR. And in the latest 10 years, it is 9.7% CAGR. So those who were saying yes, now tell me, will you invest in this scheme? Only those who are saying yes. No, yeah, now the answer is no. So the point is, this scheme did very well in the initial 10 years. And because of that initial 10-year returns, the total 20-year returns are also looking very good. Even though the last 10-year returns are not good at all. It's like below average. Yeah. So the point here is, don't get impressed or influenced when you look at a very long data for any mutual fund scheme. I'm not saying it's bad to have. I will not say that any scheme which has got good returns for 20 years is a bad scheme. I'm not saying that. I am saying don't get influenced by that data. You should not look at that data. Look at the latest returns. That's more relevant. Why it is more relevant? Because the dynamics of the mutual fund industry has changed. There are so many new regulations by SEBI in the last few years. The fund manager would have changed so many times. What worked for the scheme earlier is not working now, right? So don't just look at the overall return of last 15-20 years and get influenced or impressed by it. Right now, let's take so do not look at returns since inception for funds launched more than 10 years back. Let's look at one practical example. DSP Top 100 Equity Fund. All right. So this is the scheme name. Look at the left-hand side, launch date I'm highlighting. It is 2003 March. So more than 18.5 years back, this scheme was launched. And look at the right-hand side I'm highlighting again. The returns are 20.11% compounded annually since inception. Amazing returns. This is like superstar scheme, right? 20% returns over a period of 18.5 years compounded annually. It's definitely a superstar scheme, right? Commendable performance. Now let's go down. Look at this last 5-year and last 10-year returns. 11.28 and 12.89. Not bad, but I personally actually would say it's bad because it's a bull cycle going on. In the bull cycle, if you're getting 11-12% returns, especially in the last 5 years, then your performance is very much below average, right? So at one place you look at 20% returns last 18 years. The other place you're looking at 11.828% returns last 5 years. It shows in the first 7-8 years of its existence of this scheme, the performance was mind-blowing. It must have been more than 30-35% CAGR. So because of that initial performance, even the long-term performance is looking very good. Yeah. So that's the reason not to look at that. Now, what should you look at then? The ideal number of years is 5 years. Now, 5 years is not a very long period, and it's not a very short period also. Right? It's an ideal time that you look at last 5-year returns of a scheme. It tells you that this fund manager has performed well based on his skill and knowledge, not by luck or not by some previous performance impact. Right? It's an actual relevant updated performance of the scheme and the fund manager. Right? The next question can be, why not 1 and 3 years? I got the point, and you might say I got the point. Don't look at 10, 15, 20 years returns. Look at 5-year return. But what about 1 and 3-year return? Should that also make a difference? The answer is no. And let's look at the reason behind that. Why should you not look at 1 and 3-year return? So I've selected the category as large cap category here. In large cap, I'm looking at last 1-year returns. And this table is as per the ranking of the schemes as per 1-year returns of large cap schemes. So this is number 1 scheme, 1 out of 31. Then there's number 2, number 3, and so on. Right. Now look at this first data. Nippon India Large Cap Fund is number 1 in last 1 year as per the returns. But look at the returns in last five years. The ranking is 12 out of 29. This is below average. I mean, if you are not in top 5-7 schemes or top quartile, what is quartile? Top 25% of the schemes. If you're not in top 25% of the schemes in last 5 years, it's a below average performance. It's a bad performance. Right. So just because they got 1 year returns good, I will not invest in this scheme. Why? Because maybe the fund manager got lucky. And I don't want to invest my hard-earned money based on luck. I want to invest based on skill and knowledge. Right. Another scheme, look at this. Tata Large Cap, 58%, fourth rank scheme. The last 3-year returns is 13 out of 30. Last 5-year ranking is 20 out of 29. Again, it's bad. Yeah, look at this even better. IDBI IDBI India top 100 equity fund. Last 1 year returns 57%, which is 5th rank out of 31 schemes, which is good. Last 3-year rank is also good, 2 out of 30, right? But last 5-year rank is bad, 16 out of 29. So sometimes the last 1 year returns also impact the last 3-year returns. Last 1 year mein itne achhe returns aa gaye, they got so good returns in last 1 year that even the last 3-year returns are looking good. So it is possible to get lucky for 1, 2, and 3 years, but it is not possible to stay lucky for 5 years. All those who are asking questions, I'll request you not to post anything right now in the chat box. I have a specific, time for Q&A. In the between also, I'll take Q&A. That screen will show Q&A. So just focus right now. You'll get most of your answers during the session. So I don't want to invest my money on luck. I want to invest on skill and knowledge. And luck cannot go on for 5 years. Right? So the ideal time period to look at for any scheme's performance, and looking at performance is just one parameter, not the only parameter. Yeah, but when you're looking at it, you should look at the relevant data. You should look at the most appropriate data. So don't look at 15, 20, 30 years. Don't look at 1 and 3 years. Look at 5 years, and that's more than enough for you to move on with other parameters once this particular checking is done. Yeah, I hope that made sense. Next one, a very interesting point, and which I love to share, because this is one place where most of the investors make mistakes. Why should you avoid certain categories in mutual funds? For example, the most favorite one of most of the investors is sectoral fund. Banking sector fund, technology sector fund, pharma sector fund. A lot of people are investing in tech funds and pharma sector funds because they're expected to do well, logically and speaking, and they should do well also. Yeah, I mean, they're expected to do well at least. The SEBI mandate for these funds is minimum 80% of the total assets of the mutual fund scheme should go in that particular sector. Right now, why am I saying not to invest? Firstly, when you say that you want to invest in sectoral funds, you should invest only when you know the sector very well. So the question you need to ask is, do you know the sector very well? Not that the 100 experts are saying this, every magazine is saying this, newspapers are saying this, CNBC is saying this, my friends are saying this. No. Let's say you are in IT industry. For last 10, 15, 20 years, you have worked in IT industry, or you're in pharma sector, you're in automobile sector, and you say that I understand this industry very well. I know in and out. I know what is the challenges with this industry. I know the competition. I know how this industry is functioning. I know how the companies are functioning. Yeah. If that is your answer, my next question is, if you really know this sector so well, why don't you pick up 1 or 2 stocks in this sector and invest in them? Why do you want to pick a mutual fund scheme which has got 15, 20, 25 stocks in that sector? Because no matter how good the sector is expected to perform, every company is not going to perform. If you invest in 15, 20, 25 companies of a sector, your results in the long term will be again average. Because of competition, some companies will lose out even in a good sector. If you look at the past history, if a sector has done well, does not mean every company did well. No. Now you might say, I don't know any sector well. I would say that's the good news. Because that's the job of the fund manager, not your job. But think about it. Let's say there is a pharma sector fund. It's on they are going to invest in pharmaceutical companies or medical healthcare companies. At a given point in time, as per the research of the fund manager, he or she believes that this sector will not do well for next few years. They believe it from their core as per their research. Do you think they will go out in public and declare that we are closing this fund because we don't believe the sector will do well in the next few years? Do you think they will do that? No, it's their business. They are in the business of selling schemes. They are not in the business of closing schemes. Right? Take another example. There is a mid-cap fund scheme. It is investing in mid-cap stocks. Right? Fund manager has got 60 stocks in that scheme, and in different sectors he has invested. Now he believes that a particular sector, let's say automobile sector, will not do well for next 2, 3, 4 years. And he has got 3 stocks in that particular scheme, which are in the automobile sector. What will the fund manager do? He will exit those 3 stocks and enter into some other industry, some other stocks. Yeah, so he has got the flexibility, but that flexibility is not there in a particular sectoral fund. So when you are bounding the fund manager, you are doing injustice to yourself. I always tell my participants in the programs, fund manager ka dukh samjho, understand the pain point of the fund manager, because he is the one or she is the one who is going to manage your money and your client's money. So don't bound them, give them flexibility. Yeah. Next one. Now this is a counterintuitive. I am saying you should not look at sector anyway. When you're investing in mutual funds or stocks, you should never look at sector and then invest. Why? Now listen to this one carefully. Look at the history of telecom sector in India. If you read articles of 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, in that era, if you read some old articles, if you can find on the Google, you will find it. Every expert was talking about telecom being the next big transformation in the country, across the world, in fact. And they were right. They were right, right? But look at how many telecom stocks have performed in last 20 years. Companies have gone bankrupt. Companies which entered India have gone back to their country. There have mergers and acquisitions happening. We are left with like only 2, 3, 4 players in the industry. So just because a sector is doing well does not mean there has to be a set of stocks which will do well, or a scheme which will do well. There is a possibility that none of the stocks in that industry will do well, even though the sector was doing well. Let's take another example. Just look at the quality of your vacations, the way it has transformed in last 20 years. I know we are not going on vacations much now, but I'm sure we'll get back to that. People have already started going now. 20 years back, I remember in late 90s and early 2000s, going out for a vacation meant going to a city or town where you have some relative or a friend and you go and stay with them. Now you go to, now whichever city or town you go to, even if you have a relative, you'll go and stay in a hotel, right? Most of the time you don't even tell them. That's also the case, right? So the quality of your vacation in terms of how much you spend has increased drastically in last 20 years. The number of vacations you do, the kind of money you spend, the frequency, it has increased drastically. But look at the hospitality stocks performance in last 20 years. So just because a sector is doing well does not mean that there has to be some stocks which will do well. Let me give you one more example. Sanitizers. 1.5, 2 years back, how many of you were using sanitizers regularly on a daily basis? I think almost none, right? Very few, maybe. It depends on where you work in your industry and all that. Yeah. Now we are using it like almost daily, multiple times. Tell me one company which has become $1 billion company selling sanitizers. There is none. Why? Because when a sector is supposed to do well, thousands of players enter into that because everyone wants to make money. Think about yourself. You are into business. You want to start something. What will you start? You will start something which is expected to do well, right? So everyone wants to earn money where there is a possibility of making money. So there is more competition when a sector is supposed to do well. Now everyone is talking about EV, electronic vehicles. It is definitely bound to come, and there will be good growth and all. But whether any company will really make money, it is yet to be seen. It's too early to say, because everyone, every Tom, Dick, and Harry wants to enter that sector. Every industrial house, every startup, everyone is doing EV. They all will eat each other's pie. I'm not saying, I mean, don't go invest, don't invest in EV. That's not a recommendation. I'm just telling you this is a possibility there also. Because I keep hearing people saying that, I want to invest in EV stocks, electronic vehicle stocks. Yeah. So don't look at a sector while investing in a mutual fund scheme. But you might still say there are experts who were suggesting pharma or tech last year, and they are still suggesting, some sectors, and they were right also. One final, nail in the coffin I want to make in this particular point of sectoral funds is, if it was possible to follow those experts and make money for last 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, there would have been no poverty in India. just listen to CNBC, just read some economic Economic Times and other business newspaper, listen to those experts, what they are saying, invest in those schemes, and you make money. No one will invest in FDs, PPF, RDs, nothing. Every money, the entire country is investing into mutual funds. Why? Because there's a definite result coming. Is that happening? No, I'm not saying experts are wrong and all. All I'm saying is you can't just follow what others are saying and just go with that herd mentality. That may work sometimes, that may not work sometimes. You should know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Yeah, and sectoral funds, the way they go up, they come down also the same way. They go up by 100% in a year, they come down by 90% in 6 months. You don't even get time to exit. Yeah, next, dividend yield fund. What is dividend yield? There are some stocks which give dividends, there are some stocks which do not give dividends. So dividend yield fund will invest in those stocks which give very high dividend. Like amongst the stocks which are giving dividends, there are some stocks which give very high dividends. So dividend yield fund is supposed to invest in the schemes, in the stocks which are giving very high dividends to the shareholders. Right. Let's go to this. Before that, let me go to the sectoral fund once. Just one example I wanted to show you before I move ahead. Let's look at one sectoral fund, and I'll show you some one data point. Okay, so the name of the scheme is SBI Healthcare Opportunity Fund. As the name suggests, it is investing into healthcare industry. Let's go down, check the name of the company. First of all, how many companies are there? They are investing in 25 stocks. 25 stocks. Let's look at the name. Sun Pharma, Cipla, Dr. Reddy's Lab, Divi's Lab, Aurobindo Pharma, Lupin, Max Healthcare, Elcom, Apollo, Narayan, Torrent, JB Chemicals, Plant Pharma. Almost everything is there. Abbott India, Fortis, Solara, Strides, Ajanta. What's the point? If you are an expert in this sector, pick 1 or 2 stocks and you make your money really in the real sense. What's the point of investing in 25 stocks in the sector? No matter how good it is meant to be done, meant to perform. Next, dividend yield fund. Let's look at this category. First, look at the number of schemes in this category. It's only 8. So I don't have enough comparison to do in terms of peer comparison, right? Dividend yield funds and what kind of performance they have got. Secondly, look at their returns. If you look at the last 5-year returns, let's rank them according to that. It is 16.83, 16.25, 15.69, 13.54, which is much lower than a pure small cap or a pure mid cap scheme. Let's look at them. I'll show you. If you go to equity mid cap, we're looking at 5-year submit. Look at the returns. There it was how much in dividend yield fund? 16, 15, 13, 14, right? Here it is 20.91, 20.56, 19, 18, 18, 17, 17, 16. 16 has come on 8th or 9th rank. So the difference of like 3 or 4% clearly in dividend yield funds and pure small cap and pure mid cap funds. Yeah, so it is not giving you, it's just a fancy name, fancy category. Another, value funds. We all know about value investing. What is value investing? When you invest in those stocks which have got low valuation, let's say low P ratio, and because they have got low P ratio and their prospects are supposed to be good, their growth prospects are supposed to be good, so they will give higher returns than other stocks. So this value funds, value schemes are supposed to give higher returns than the other normal schemes in the market. Let's look at the performance. Dekhte hain kya returns are. Again, 5-year I'm ranking them. Look at this. Again, starts from 16. We just looked at mid cap, right? 16.83, 16.35, 14, 14, 14, 13. This is the condition of value funds. Where is the value? Let me show you one more category. Equity small cap. I showed you equity mid cap already. Look at equity small cap now. 5-year return. You already looked at this 16, 16, 14, 14, right? The ranking as per 5-year. Now let's look at small cap category, 5-year ranking. Look at this, starts from 22. That started from 16 value funds. 22.28, 22.16, 22%, 21, 22, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16 has come on rank number 10. So again, it's a worthless exercise to even look at these categories. Another category, contra. What is contra? Comes from the word contradictory. So the fund manager is supposed to take contradictory calls, opposite to what the general opinion of the market is. For example, the fund manager might invest into ITC stock in this particular fund, because it's like out of favor right now, and he believes that this stock is good and this company will perform in the future. So he will take contradictory funds, contradictory calls. Same situation in the returns of contradictory. You can do it after the session. You can do a cross check. Another category, thematic fund. This is like the most ridiculous category available. I don't know why do they have it. They should be banned. Like seriously, look at this. Within thematic, you have multiple options. Thematic consumption, thematic. So they will invest in only consumption-oriented stocks. For example, Asian Paints. It's a consumption, like you consume that product. Consume as in not eat, but consume in terms of using. Pidilite, Britannia, HUL. All these are consumption-driven stocks, right? So they are different sectors, but they come under consumption category. Thematic energy, only energy and power companies. Thematic international stocks. Thematic MNC, only in those companies which are actually MNCs. So if a company is based only in India, they will not invest in that. They will invest only when they have offices in other countries also, right? Thematic PSU, they will invest only in government companies. I don't understand what's the point. I mean, this is not some fancy dress competition that I'll invest on a theme based. I'll do theme based investing. It's my hard earned money. मजाक थोड़ा चल रहा है यहाँ पे कि यार theme based investing करते हैं. It's like some entertainment is going on. Why would I invest in theme? I will invest if that's supposed to give returns. It's like, again, I'm telling you, it's like you go to a showroom, there are like 1,000 pieces displayed there. Is everything useful to you? No. The mutual fund company is in the business of selling schemes. So they are supposed to give you hundreds of options, because everyone will have different views. Someone will buy this, someone will buy that. They will end up selling something to someone, something to everyone. That's why they have all these options. But you look at, why are you buying that? Yep, I hope that made sense. Let me start just a second. Timer, sorry. 3.5 minutes, and I'll answer the questions in the meanwhile. I might miss a few questions, and I'll just try and do my best to look at everything. What is the difference between thematic and sectoral? Good question, Sushant. Sectoral, for example, FMCG is a sector, right? But in this consumer is a broader theme. I just give you the example. Pidilite and Asian Paints will also come in that, right? The food industry is a different industry. FMCG might include only Asian Paints, Britannia and HUL kind of companies. But Asian Paints and Pidilite will also come in a consumption theme. Special situation fund, please understand the psychology of the fund house which is selling those schemes. They want to come up with different variety, unique kind of things so that people get attracted to it. I believe in dal roti schemes. What is dal roti schemes? A pure large cap, a pure mid cap, a pure small cap. Yeah. Advisable to invest currently in sector mutual fund is, because it's not about right now or later or earlier. I just don't believe in investing in all these categories. It's not about ki abhi time nahi hai ki baad mein time hai. I just gave you my entire list of reasons. Fund of funds I'll cover today. Flexi cap I have not covered, Vishal, right now, so I would not be able to comment because that's a different detailed topic. Can MFD business be still profitable by simplifying the portfolio? Yes, why not? Life is about making things simple. The more you make it complex, even if you're making a portfolio complex, that will not give results to the client. If your clients do not get results, how will they come back to you? They are busy in their profession, in their job or business, whatever. They just want to see what returns are coming in the long run. They will not. You can't go and convince them. See, I invested in 7 or 8 different fancy kind of categories for you. Returns nahi aaya, main kya karu, but I did my best. No, they will just see the returns. And even choosing the simple category funds is not like it's not something which anyone and everyone will do. You have to spend time on that also. It's not like if you take only small cap, mid cap, and large cap, anyone will do that. No. Just a second, I'm just reading a few questions. See, I'll request you to ask me questions relevant to what we have covered so far, because see, mutual fund is a broad topic. As Rajesh was mentioning, I do a program on mutual funds, which is a detailed program. I cannot cover everything here today in 1 hour session. So just cover whatever is, just ask me questions relevant to what we are covering right now, because that will, enhance your concept, make your concepts clear. If someone wants to diversify exposure to a basket of companies in a sector, isn't sector fund a good in a small amount? It's not about Sanjay. It's not about small amount or big amount. I just gave you my whys behind not investing in sector funds. If you can disagree, but you should have your why, which is very strong. Whatever you are saying, are you like 100% confident in, with conviction? You are saying that I want to invest in sector funds, and this is my why behind that. If you're 100% confident, please go ahead. Advantage of contra fund, I see no advantage in these categories I've just shown you. All these categories I've just shown you, I think that you should just keep away from them as much as possible. All right, let's move on. I think I've answered relevant questions. I'm not reading all the questions because most of the questions are from on topics other than what we have discussed so far. I would not be able to answer all of them. All right, next one. NFO. So again, I recommend not to. So you're looking at mistakes to avoid, right? That's the topic of the session. So we are looking at what not to do. Yeah, how to be careful about what you're doing. The same thing. So why not NFO? So first of all, there is no track record. There are so many good schemes available in the market with performance track record. What incentive do I have to go and invest in NFO? It does not make sense at all. Another problem is expense ratio. The charges of NFO is typically higher than other funds. Why? Because it has just started. The fixed expenses are there in most of the mutual fund houses. So that expense will be there irrespective of what is the size of the fund. When the size of the fund increases, the expense ratio will come down in percentage terms. But initially, when the fund has just started, the expense ratio will naturally be higher. Why do you want to pay high expense ratio? It will lower down your returns further. And please understand, again, mutual fund companies are in the business of selling schemes. So they know how to do marketing. They are good at marketing. They will come up with these, new fund offers, new schemes, and they will entice you with that. First time in ever history, EV oriented fund, this fund, that fund, never happened earlier. The first time, first different kind of a fund, whatever, they'll say all that. They're meant to say all that. That's why you will invest, and you'll make your investors invest. They're supposed to convince you. Yeah. And one more thing, they sometimes also come up with this star fund manager, celebrity fund manager, great performance fund manager. He's going to manage this fund, because a new fund offer does not mean there has to be a new fund manager. It could be a existing fund manager also. But that also is not enough for me to go and invest, because if you see this celebrity fund manager concept has been there across the world. There are phases to the fund managers also. They perform very well. They become a celebrity. Again, their performance goes down. They go out of favor. Then again, they start performing. So you never know when they will go out of favor, when they will start to not perform. So if this was the way that, look at the top 2, 3, 4 fund managers in terms of their past performance and invest in only those schemes, again, there will be no poverty in India. Everyone will invest only in those schemes of those particular fund managers and make money. We all will be the richest country in the world. So if that was possible, that a fund manager who has done well in the past will definitely do well in the future, and that's why you should invest in NFO, again, that's not a very good reason to invest. Right? Someone was asking about fund of funds. So as the name suggests, it is fund of funds. So it's like a mutual fund portfolio in itself. It's a scheme which is investing in other mutual fund schemes. It is not investing in stocks directly. It is investing in other mutual fund schemes. So my advice on this is maintain social distance from fund of funds. Please, just stay away. Why? Let's go to this. Let's look at the performance first. Firstly, there are only 10 fund of funds available, so not many players to look at. And look at the performance: 17.27%, 13.94, 11.3. Only 3 funds are 5 years old. Other funds have been just launched like 1, 2, or 3 years back. And performance you can see in front of you. Second, expense ratio is charged twice, because the schemes they are investing into, they are charging expense ratio, which is incorporated in their NAV already. and you are again paying expense ratio to this fund of fund. तो ऐसा भी क्या return दे देंगे that you want to pay them twice. Instead of 2%, you're paying 4% expense ratio. You will not make returns for your clients and for yourself, not possible. And it's there in front of you. The results are there in front of you. And the worst part, not many people are aware that tax treatment of fund is as per debt funds, not as per equity funds. What is tax treatment as per equity funds? After, below 1 year, it is 15% tax, short-term capital gain. After 1 year, it is 10% tax. Right? That's for, and that too after 1 lakh rupees. First 1 lakh rupees is free for long term, and beyond that, it is 10% tax by the government. That is long-term capital gain tax in equity schemes. In this, it is as per your income tax for first 3 years. So if you sell this scheme within 3 years and you are in 30% tax bracket, you will pay 30% tax on this. So one, you are paying double the charges, other you are paying more taxes. I don't see any desperation or incentive to invest in these kind of funds. Yeah, and see, understand what is good for your client is definitely good for you. Whether you are an investor or you are an advisor, this session is relevant for both. What you think might be good for you and not good for your client, that will not work for long. It has to be a win-win situation. Only then in the long term you will have those, that stand in the market. Next, ETFs. What is an ETF? It is just an index fund which is converted into a stock. Just explaining it in layman term, it's an index fund which is converted into a stock and it is trading on the stock exchange like any other stock. That's called an ETF, exchange traded fund. Right? Now, one misconception which people have is that the expense ratio of ETFs is lower than the expense ratio of even direct plans of mutual funds, which is right. But people miss out on this point. When you're investing in an ETF, you're investing through your Demat account, and your Demat account has Demat transaction charges. Now you might say, I'm investing through Zerodha. I have no charges to pay. There is zero brokerage. You're right. But there is something called STT, which you still pay. There is something called NSE BSE charges, which you still pay. BSE charges, SEBI charges, you still pay. CDA, the depository charges, you still pay. GST, you still pay. So you look at your contract note of your Zerodha Demat account when you're doing any transaction, there are charges which you have paid. Zerodha has not earned anything, but other entities, government, and everyone has got the money. So if you look at the total charges of an ETF, most likely it will be more than the index fund, direct plan, even regular plan sometimes, depending on how much is your brokerage in that Demat account. So the question is, which is better, index fund or ETF? So there are 2-3 things. One is the charges is a problem, number one. Number two, you cannot do SIP, STP, SWP, all those facilities are available only in a fund, not an ETF. If you want to do a 10,000 rupees SIP for an ETF, it's not possible. You have to do manually. If you want to withdraw systematic transfer, systematic withdrawal plan, you cannot do an ETF. You have to do it manually again, the way you do for stocks. In index fund, you have all those facilities also, right? So again, so ETF, and having said that, you can still invest in ETF, but the point is, it's more about comfort then. So someone might say that, I'm having only a stocks portfolio and I'm comfortable investing only in ETF. Why? Because I want to manage everything at one place. I don't want to have a mutual fund separately and a rest of the stock separately. That's fine. But you should be aware that, what are the challenges and the pros and cons of both the sides. Yeah. How to choose your advisor. So I believe a lot of you or most of you are advisors here or aspiring advisors. You should know what all different kinds of services are available to the customer, right, out there, so that you know what exactly is the service available and where you can add value, right? And if you are an investor here and listening to this session, again, you should know what are the options available to you. Yeah. So number one, the most common one is mutual fund distributor. They make you invest in regular plans, right? And that's how they regular plans and direct plans difference. I believe most of you will know. Regular plan is when you invest through some advisor or intermediary and you paid around, let's say 2% of expense ratio. That is the charges. And if you're investing in direct plan of the scheme, there's no mediator, no one guiding you or as such, advising you in that particular case. But you are paying 1% less. You're paying only 1% charges. So you save 1% on there. Why? Because that 1% commission goes to the advisor. So nothing right or wrong in that. It's a choice. There are people who choose regular plans because they want to delegate everything to the advisor. Yeah. Next, Examples, there can be an individual MFD, there can be, the banks are also MFDs because they have got the MFD license. The brokerage house executives, all those people who come to you and sell the schemes, they all have MFD license. Their company has got the MFD license, right? Now there's one problem here, conflict of interest. So those who are working in a bank or a brokerage house and they sell mutual fund schemes, don't take it otherwise. I am just telling you a structural problem. It's not your fault. You are doing your job, but I'm just telling you what exactly the structural problem of this industry is. When you are dealing with any executive of a bank or a brokerage house who is selling you mutual fund schemes, there's a conflict of interest. Why? Because that person's career is not really dependent on your returns. Why? Let's say I'm investing through my relationship manager. I'm a long-term investor, and I believe in looking at my portfolio after 5 years. I want to give time to the advisor to perform. But after 2, 3, 4, 5 years, by that time, my RM would have changed. That person would have left the job, left the city, left the country maybe, and gone to some other place. So I don't have anyone to hold accountable to, right? And that person's career is not dependent on my returns. I mean, he will achieve his targets, get his incentive, bonus, promotion, whatever, and move on. I mean, he's doing his job. I mean, I won't blame him. But as an investor, I should be aware where is the conflict of interest. When I'm dealing with an individual advisor, I mean, those who are individual advisors here, you can pitch this to your investors that you're dealing with us. We are directly looking at your portfolio, and this is our business. This is our profession. We will grow when you grow. Only when you get returns, you will get more money to us. Only when you get returns, you will give us references. So our interests are aligned. I will make money only when you make money in the long run. I want to stay in this business for long. I'm not here for 1 or 2 years. Right? That's a very, very, very relevant point to put across. Another kind of license which SEBI gives is called SEBI Registered Investment Advisors, also called RIA in short form. They make you invest in direct plans, but they charge both fees and commission. So they may have a one-time fees or maybe an annual fees and plus commission based on your portfolio size. So it's like very subjective depending on RIA to RIA. So you have to deal with them one-to-one and see what are their commissions and charges. So basically you end up paying more than the direct plan because you're paying the direct plan expense ratio, but you pay most likely less than the regular plan, most likely. Yeah, so just figure out what are their charges, but they make you invest in direct plan. But in both these cases, MFD and RIA, everything is managed by them. All the back office work, KYC karni hai, bank mandate karna hai, re-KYC, whatever it is, increasing the SIP amount, decreasing the SIP amount, stopping a SIP, starting a new SIP, advisory, what to change, what not to change, everything you delegate to these two people. Right? The third kind of license is called SEBI Registered Research Analyst, which I have got, but I am not into mutual fund advisory. I'm just into the education side of that. They can charge only fixed fee and they do not manage your portfolio. They just provide you the advice based on the fees they charge, that which schemes you should buy and when you should change, they will inform you. You as an investor have to implement that on your own. Buying, selling, whatever you have to do on your own. This is like going to a doctor. You pay the fees, doctor gives you the prescription. You are responsible to do it for taking the medicines on time or doing exercise on time. Yeah, doctor has taken the fees, given you the prescription. Now it's your duty your responsibility to do it. That's exactly what a SEBI RA structure can do. Right. Another one is called robo advisory. So there are they again make you invest in regular plans. Robo comes from the word robot, so you can say robo advisory from that angle. Examples are Scriptbox is one very famous company. My Universe is by Aditya Birla Group. Funds India is there. They're all platforms, and they make you invest in regular plan. Now I'm sure the investors have got a huge incentive to go to them because even though you don't have any physical interaction, one-to-one interaction with any dedicated RM, you still go and pay for the regular plan charges. So I'm sure they have a very good interface. They give a lot of help in terms of financial planning or whatever they do. You can figure out what are their services overall, which makes people go there, right? Plus you have all these brokerage houses, HDFC Securities, Kotak Securities, ICICI Securities. It's not exactly robo advisory, but they again make you invest in regular plan. All these companies also are making money from the commission from the mutual fund company. They're not investing in making you invest in a direct plan. It's a regular plan. Yep. Next, now if you're investing directly in mutual funds, There are various platforms available. Thankfully now, this India is getting competitive in this domain of financial services, and we are moving ahead. So we have Kubera, Grow, Zerodha Coin, Paytm Money, ET Money, Goldwise, Clearfund. So you can open your account any of these platforms. You can bring all your family data there. You can import the data there, and everything will be there on one screen, one dashboard, and you can start your SIP, STP. Everything can be managed there. Yeah. So these are the new platforms or new age platforms which have come up, and they are doing pretty well in terms of servicing the investors. Yeah. Next one, and then I'll take the question after this slide. Fund manager. So one of the secrets I told you in the initial slide was that very few fund managers are investing their own money into the scheme which they are managing. Right. Now please understand, if I'm investing my hard-earned money into a mutual fund scheme, and the person who is the topmost guy, the fund manager who is responsible for taking the decisions in this scheme, that which stocks to buy, in what proportion, when to sell, when to buy, all those decisions are taken by that person. And he's into a full-time job, right? That's his full-time job. That's day in, day out. He's supposed to research companies and come up with a list of portfolio, a proper portfolio. Now, if that person is not investing his own money into the scheme, that definitely makes me a little uncomfortable. Now you might say he might have different goals and different requirements. He might not have enough money to invest, right? So that's why he's not able to invest. So let me ask you a question. How many of you know what is the typical remuneration of a mutual fund manager in India? The topmost guy of a scheme, the mutual fund manager, in per annum basis, in a 1 year, how much does he make? How much returns do he make? Salary does he make? What is the CTC? 2 crore, 1 crore? Any other answer? 60 lakhs to 1 crore, 2 to 3% of fund size. No, it's not based on fund size. Some fund sizes, let's say 20,000 crores, it will not be 2% of that. 1 to 2 crores, 4 to 5 crores, 1 to 8 crores, 12 crores. Okay, more than 1 crore. So we are all in the right range. So typically it is between 2 to 10 crores, 2 crores to 10 crores rupees, anywhere between that. Most of the fund managers fall in this category. Right now, I'm not saying they're making a lot of money. They should not. I mean, I'm sure they deserve it. That's why they're getting it. But the point is, they cannot give this excuse that we don't have enough money to invest. I'm not saying put everything in that scheme. Definitely, you will. As a fund manager, I'm also an individual. I have my family. I will also invest in various asset classes in various places. But if I'm not investing at all, or I'm investing peanuts in my own scheme, that definitely is not justified. Yeah. So this is called skin in the game. That when you're investing your own money in what you are advising, that's called skin in the game. Yeah. So there are 3 categories of people, personnel in the mutual fund company. One is called key managerial personnel. You can also call them senior management. The other is fund manager or fund managers. They can be more than one manager also sometimes in the scheme. And AMC's board of director. What is AMC? Asset management company. That's a mutual fund company. Another technical name for that. So all these 3 people put together, how much money are they investing in the scheme? That's what I need to look at. And I want to compare that with other schemes in the same category. Yeah. Now you might say, why are we looking at other two people? Because please understand, it's the KMPs and the board of directors which hire the fund manager. So they will not hire anyone like that when they have their own money into that scheme. They want to hire someone who is capable, because even their money is at stake. Yeah, and they're key people. They're important decision makers in the company. All these 3 categories, right? Now, how do you get this information? There is something called scheme information document, which every scheme releases twice a year, and this is a law. It's a mandate by SEBI. You can go on Google, type the name of your scheme. I'll just show you a couple of examples. Type the name of your scheme and the name of right scheme information document. You will get a few links. You can go and check the latest data. Let's do that. Edelweiss large cap fund. Let's look at the investment done by the fund managers in this particular scheme. Let me close a few windows. So there are a few keywords. The one keyword which will give you the answer most of the time is aggregate. The word is aggregate. So there are like few answers you will get here. Just keep on entering. You will reach a table which will show you the data you're looking for. Look at this. The aggregate investment in scheme as on March 31st, 2021. I said they announce it twice a year. So I think the second announcement will come very soon, maybe in October or November. Under the following categories as follows. So as on 31st March, AMC board of directors is nil. Fund manager is only 17,000 rupees. and other key personnel is again 70. So this figure is same. It cannot be exactly same. I think they have just repeated. So because fund managers can also be considered a part of other key personnel. Or let's say they have invested 34,000. It's okay, 35,000 rupees, whatever it is. But this amount is too small. This is like as good as not investing. Yeah. Why would they do that? Let's look at another scheme, DSP Midcap. I already downloaded the PDF. I'll just show you that. Just go on Google and you go to the AMC's website and you will get this scheme information document for all the schemes. Again, I'll use the word aggregate. Look at this again, 31st March 2021. This amount is in crores. Always look at the units. Sometimes they mention in crores, sometimes they mention in lakhs, sometimes they mention in simple rupees. So 25 CR plus 0.94 CR plus 1.56 CR. Almost what? This becomes 26 and a half, 28 CR approximately. So now this is decent enough, right? But I will not go and invest in this scheme just because the manager investment is good. Please understand, this is one of the parameter, not the only parameter. Now you may ask why? What's wrong in just looking at this very important parameter and going and investing? Because integrity and capability are two different things. If you're investing your own money, that's called integrity. That's what I'll call it. It's integrity. You are honest, that you're authentic, right? But that does not prove that you are capable also. Look at the Motilal Oswal mutual fund schemes. Most of the schemes have got very high investment by fund managers, but most of their schemes are not performing. तो वो तो डूबेंगे अपना पैसा लेके, हमारा पैसा भी लेके डूब जाएंगे. So they will lose their money, we will also end up losing our money. So looking at for any particular parameter when you're looking at in a mutual fund scheme is not strong enough to reject or select a scheme. You have to look at it in a holistic way. Yeah. So it's important to look at this, but don't get so influenced by it that you'll just look at this and go and invest. Don't do that. I hope that made sense. Now, new law by SEBI. Fortunately, and this is a big transformation for the mutual fund industry in India. In April 2021, this year, SEBI came up with a law, which I think they have started implementing from 1st October itself, that 20% of all these people, key managerial personnel, fund manager, and other people in the industry, in the company, 20% of their salary will come in the form of units of the scheme which they are managing. Let's say the fund manager's salary is 2 crore rupees. 20% of that is what? 40 lakhs. So in that year, 1.6 crores will come to him the way it was coming earlier. 40 lakh rupees will go to the scheme in which he or she is managing the money. And this amount is locked in for 3 years. For 3 years, he or she cannot take out that money. And this is a game changer for sure, because this will bring up a lot of responsibility on the shoulders of the fund manager. Now they will treat this money as their own money because they really have skin in the game now. I believe the next 10-15 years, the kind of consolidation we will have in the industry in terms of, number of schemes will go down now, because fund managers will start going out of the market. They will not be comfortable investing their own money. You will watch this in the next 2, 3, 5 years. And that's good for the industry. We will have consolidation. Only few schemes will be there, not hundreds of schemes. And they will be responsible. They will be naturally responsible because their own money is going into that. And that too is significant money. 20% is quite significant. And that to lock in for 3 years. Ye nahi ki aaj dala aur kal nikal liya. They can't do that. Yeah, so this is going to be a game changer for sure. I hope they implement the way they are meant to be implemented. There is no manipulation or any loopholes coming up here. I just really hope that. Yep. Let me look at the Q&A. Before that, let me do again, just a second, 3-minute timer. We started at 4:10. I mean, I started at 4:10, so we'll be done by 5:10. Yeah. Why people think focusing NAV or NFO, which is 10 rupees, they think they will get extra unit at cheap rather than investing in existing. Is NAV a key factor? No. Umesh, very good question. If you're looking at the NAV of a scheme and you say this is 10 rupees NAV and the other is 500 rupees NAV, so 10 rupees NAV will give higher returns. That's what foolish people think like. Let me use this crude word. It's foolish to think like that. It's like it proves that your knowledge level is zero when it comes to mutual funds. Please understand the background, how it works. Let's say there are two schemes. One has got 500 rupees NAV. One is a newly launched scheme and it's got 10 rupees NAV. And they both have got same stocks in the portfolio in the same proportion. Now tell me, will the returns be different? No. If the 10 rupee NAV goes to 20 rupees, even the 500 rupees NAV will go to 1000 rupees. Because the composition is same. At the other end, if the 10 rupee NAV stocks are not good, it will come down to 5. And 500 rupees NAV will go up to 1000 rupees. It's all about the stock selection. It's nothing to do with NAV. Could you ask this question, Umesh? If fund managers also start investing significant investments, will it not impact their emotions when investing? So Raghu, the point is that right now it's a bigger level. Right now their money is not there. So they are just gaining experience on other people's money. दूसरों के पैसे के ऊपर अपना एक्सपीरियंस गेन कर रहे हैं, अपना प्रोफाइल इंप्रूव कर रहे हैं, लिंक्डइन के ऊपर अच्छा प्रोफाइल दिख रहा है, रेज्यूमे अच्छा बन रहा है, एंड दे गेटिंग अ बेटर जॉब ईच टाइम. इमोशंस तो मतलब थोड़े बहुत होने चाहिए, इट्स गुड. एंड हैविंग सेड दैट, if that person is not good at managing their emotion, he or she should not be a fund manager, and he will end up not making good money, and he will go out of the market, go out of this industry. Okay, fund size. So fund size is a very important criteria. I have set up limits. I mean, I hear that it is a very detailed point. Can't really take up right now, but I have set up limits on what should be the fund size for each category. And I advise to invest in that range itself. But yeah, it is important. If you go beyond a certain fund size, the performance will start going down, because the fund manager does not have enough options to invest that money. They will go on to invest into B grade and C grade kind of stocks. Should we invest via Paytm, PhonePe, MobiKwik? I think, Kumar, there should not be any problem with investing through any platform, because that platform does not own your money. Just a second, guys. Timer here is up. Please understand that whichever platform you're investing through, whether it's Paytm or Grow or Kuvera, they do not own your investment. They're just dashboards. They're just medium. Even if they go down tomorrow, even if they close tomorrow, your money is with the fund house. Your money is not with these people. They don't own your money at all. SEBI has, taken care of that. In my opinion, it should not be a problem. Thank you, Ravi, for the feedback. All right. The 5 minutes I have with me. I'll just share a couple of things before I leave for the day. I'll take up a few more questions, two, three questions more maybe. Before that, I'm just sharing one link to a Telegram channel. You may choose to join it, because we share information on mutual funds, on stocks, on financial planning, on different topics within the investment domain. So you can just click on that. I've shared the link in the chat box, and you can join the Telegram channel for those nuggets of information. That's one thing. And you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. I've just shared the details in front of you on the screen. Now, before I leave for the day, just one question for all of you. How would it be if I train you to gain mutual fund expertise so that you can fulfill all your financial goals? I want to know how many of you would be interested to know about this thing. I'll just take 2 minutes and tell you the brief about it. It's not for everyone, but I just want to know how many of you will be interested to know about if this is possible. If you like to get trained on how to select the right equity mutual funds, how to monitor your portfolio, how to create your portfolio, and all those things. Perfect. Great. Thank you for the interest. Let me go ahead and just share briefly. Rajesh, I'll just take 2 to 3 minutes more and then over to you. It's called, as Rajesh mentioned initially, it's called Mutual Funds Excellence Program. So what happens in this exactly is a 3 days live workshop. The way we are doing right now, it's the same kind of a workshop. You end up shortlisting mutual fund schemes during live session. So it's like I'll tell you what all parameters to be used and how to use those parameters to form your portfolio. So you end up having your portfolio in your hand by the end of the program, right? You learn the art of monitoring your portfolio, how frequently you should monitor and what all you should look at, how to form the portfolio, how many schemes you should have, when you should sell your scheme, right? And if you are an investor, you will also learn how to ask right questions to your mutual fund advisor. And if you are a mutual fund advisor, you will know how to answer those questions to your investors. Right now, there are bonuses worth up to 6,000 rupees, which includes ebooks and cash prizes on quizzes. There will be a dedicated WhatsApp group in which I will be there for the 3-day workshop and 1 more week. So for about 9 days, I will be in that WhatsApp group to answer all your queries. This program is only on equity mutual funds. We will not cover debt or hybrid mutual fund because I need 7.5 hours of live workshop over a period of 3 days to just cover this whole domain of equity mutual funds. The coming batch is from 22nd October. You can look at the dates. 22nd, 23rd, 24th, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, same timing, 8:30 p.m. to 10:45 p.m. all the 3 days. And recording is available for 7 days. So the session gets over on 24th October. The program gets over on 24th October. Just add 7 days to that. That is by 31st October, you will have the recording access. After that, the access will be taken away. So you can ideally attend the live sessions. If you're not able to attend live, you have access to it for a few days. So including all the bonuses and the value of the program and the quiz prizes, which I was talking about, this program is worth 8,099, but you don't have to pay this. This is the price which you pay when you go to my website, only 599 rupees. But thanks to Rajesh and this college, this institute, you will get this option of investing, registering for 499 rupees. Not a big amount, it's just a small token of thanks from our side. And this offer is valid till 11:59 p.m. tonight. How can you access this offer? You will get an email today in next, let's say, at max 1 hour. Just watch out for your inbox, spam box, promotion box, bulk box. It might go there. You will get an email with a special link. That link will expire by 11:59 p.m. So you register by 499. If you register later, you can always go to the website anupampumta.com. In the service section, you will get the link to register at 599 rupees. Right? All right, that's all from my side. I'll just take up 2-3 questions more. Harsh is saying, I have attended your MFEP, excellent program. One should join this. I highly recommend this. I have attended your session 24-20. Oh, you just attended the last batch. Good to know that, Harsh. So Harsh is giving his feedback on the chat box. Thank you, Harsh, for sharing this. We are developing debt mutual fund program and financial planning program also, but it may take some time. It will not happen not in next few weeks, but it will take few months. But right now we have this equity mutual fund thing. This is the screen. So by the way, my program has been done by more than 80 mutual fund distributors and registered investment advisors till date. I mean, I started this in December 2020, so not even 1 year. So out of around 1,200 people who have done the program, 80 people are mutual fund distributors and advisors. And when I share the link, the email with you today, I'll mention the Google review link. You can go and check the reviews of all the people. And I will share a video testimonial also in that link, in that email, in which one of the advisors is also giving the feedback. So those who are advisors, you will be able to relate. Yeah. So everything related to equity mutual funds. I mean, there is no advanced course, by the way. Last one point I want to make, and I'll hand over to Rajesh. There is no advanced course on equity mutual funds from me. That's what typically happens in online education. You pay for a small program, 500, 600, 700, 1,000 rupees. Then they pitch you a 10,000, 20,000 rupees product, which is an advanced version of the same topic. But no, this is complete information which you need to learn equity mutual funds. You would not need anything, any guidance, any support after this. So housewives and students and college, professionals and everyone has done this program, and they all are able to do that. So you being in this industry, you can definitely do that. All right, Rajesh, you can take over, please.
Thank you so much, Anupam. Thank you for being here, sharing your expertise on mutual fund and talking about mutual fund excellence program as well.
Thank you.
So if you can stop sharing, I would like to share my screen.
Yes, and I'd also like to take your leave. I have to go for another, some other commitment. And thank you once again for giving me this opportunity. I hope this added value to the audience, and this took your agenda of adding value to your audience ahead. So thank you. Thanks a lot for giving this opportunity.
Thank you, Anupam, for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye. Thank you, everyone.
All right. So as I shared in the beginning, that the talk today is going to be in two parts. The first part where Anupam was talking about mutual funds and the mutual fund advisory. The second part where I said I'll be talking about journey from a mutual fund distributor to a financial planner. Not only a mutual fund distributor, rather kind of augmenting the whole practice, multiplying the whole practice and becoming a full-fledged financial planner. So the point is, so what's the way? What's the roadmap? How to be a full-fledged financial planner? So I will be talking about the way to be a full-fledged financial planner, a credible financial planner. The problem today that we see is people who sell mutual funds are often termed as mutual fund agents. People who sell insurance are often termed as insurance agents. What I'm trying to say is client looks at you as agents, as sellers. So therein, though you are selling a financial product, you are selling financial products which requires high amount of credibility. But the way the client looks at you, that credibility factor goes down. So what's the solution? The solution is probably not being positioned as a distributor or an agent, but being positioned as a financial planner, as a financial professional, as a qualified, certified financial guy. Okay, so I'll be talking about CFP. CFP is Certified Financial Planner. This is a certification offered by FPSB USA, Financial Planning Standards Board USA. So this is a global certification, international certification, valid in 27 countries across the world. World's topmost certification in personal finance and financial planning. So with that, let me begin the presentation. So what is CFP? Introducing CFP, talking about CFP, as I said, it's world's topmost program in personal finance. It's recognized in 27 countries across the world. And when I say 27 countries, all the biggest, US, UK, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, all the biggest, Canada, South Africa, everywhere it is recognized. It's a very unique 4-in-1 certification program. So when I say 4-in-1, I essentially mean that within one single program, you get 4 certifications. So you study for one program, but you get 4 distinct international certifications from FPSB USA. So 4 international certifications is what you get. This is a program which is ideal for anybody and everybody, whether you are a student, you are a professional, you are an IFA, you are a chartered accountant, you are a housewife. It is an ideal program for anybody and everybody. How? I will explain that as well. And it's a program which is content-wise, which is completely focused on personal finance. So when I say personal finance, what is personal finance? A finance which is related to an individual. Finance which relates to a company is called corporate finance, is known as corporate finance. Finance which relates to a person is known as personal finance. So when I say personal finance, it essentially means my investments, my taxation, my financial plans, my goals, my wealth, my succession plans, right? So all of that is included in the program. It's a program which is highly demanded by the industry. Why? Because the industry ultimately knows the exact content of the program and how it is going to help them. The beauty is that this program, despite being world's topmost program, despite having 4 international certifications, it is a short-term program. It takes roughly around 8 to 10 months, depending on your speed, although you can do it faster as well. I have taken a benchmark of 8 to 10. You can wrap it up in 6 months as well. So 8 to 10 months, and you can study online, completely online, right from your registration to examination to certification. Everything is purely 100% online. So that's the beauty of the program. Okay, so the question would be, so what is the eligibility to join the program? Who can join the program? The bare minimum qualification stipulated by the Financial Planning Standards Board USA is you have to be a minimum 10+2 passed, minimum 10+2 and 18 years of age. There is no restriction of stream. That means science, commerce, arts, there is no such restriction at all. People from any stream can come in, and there is no restriction on percentages, that minimum 45%, minimum 80%, no. So anybody can come in and join. Okay, so it's more like a chartered accountant program which opens up after, now this day chartered accountant program opens up after 10th itself. So you kind of get into, and then you study during the program, you get expertise into one particular area. So as I talked about chartered accountancy, so there you kind of build your speciality on accounting. Here you build your speciality on personal finance. So that's one reason why CFP is also termed as, widely termed by the experts as, the CA of personal finance. It's more like becoming a chartered accountant in the personal finance domain. So that's the criteria to join the program. But when you study for the program over the next 8-10 months, as I said, it takes roughly around 8 to 10 months for you to pass. So when you pass the exam, then you get the charter, you get the CFP membership, the FPSB membership. So to get that charter, the minimum criteria is not 10+2, you need to be a graduate. So the point is, if a 10+2 or a first year guy or a second year guy does it, no worries. The moment he completes his graduation and meets other criteria, he will get the certificate. He is not supposed to be taking the exam and taking the study again, right? So you can study at any point of time. Okay, so that's one. Second criteria to get the certificate or get the charter is minimum 3 years of work experience in the BFSI domain, banking and financial services domain. And these 3 years of experience can be anything, even your MFD code and AMFI ARN code, your IRDA code, your stockbroker license, whatever. Any work related to BFSI, even a CA article SIP is taken as a valid experience. So any experience for 3 years in the BFSI domain is good enough. The question is, what if somebody doesn't have? As I said, even housewives can do it. Anybody can come and do it. So then the other option is, you have to complete 1 year of supervised article SIP under a practicing CFP. The way in CA you have article SIP, here in CFP as well you have article SIP, but that's only for people who do not meet that 3 years of work experience criteria. So these three, the last pointers that you see is to get the certificate, to get the charter. The first 3 points that I talked about is to get into the program. If you look at the program structure, the program framework, it's a multi-level program. So when I say multi-level, it's a 4-in-1 program. You remember I said you earlier, it's a 4-in-1 program. So within one program, you study for 4 different levels. So the program goes wise CFP level 1, CFP level 2, CFP level 3, and CFP final. So that's a 4-level program. It's divided that way so that your study, the flow is very smooth. It doesn't mean that if there are 10 modules to study, you need not study all the 10 modules together. It's like you study for 3 modules, then you study for 2 modules, you study for 2 modules, and then at the end you study for 3 modules again. So it's a kind of a break pattern that's there in the program. It's a very smooth flow. And the best part is the final level, CFP final level, includes live projects and case studies. So it's not a theoretical program like an MBA project wherein you copy paste from Google and submit a project. It's a project which is like, so let's say, for example, to help you understand, let's say I'm Rajesh. So they will give you a case saying, okay, Rajesh is somebody who works with International College of Financial Planning as a CEO. His salary is this much. His savings are this much. He has these assets, these liabilities. He has family. His wife is doing this. He has a daughter. His financial plans are this. He wants to send his daughter to US for education. Likewise, they will give you my entire life journey. And then they will ask you that make a financial plan for Rajesh if he has to achieve all these goals. So that's like practically implementing what you learn during the program. It's not like learning and then kind of finishing up and doing a Google cut copy project. So it's a very live practical learning during the program. That makes the program very unique. It's a very hands-on program. The second thing that comes is, how are you assessed? So the assessment is done through exams. There are examinations at every level. Level 1 you study, after that you appear at level 1 exam. Level 2 you study, you appear at level 2 exam. Level 3 you study, appear at level 3 exam. And level 4 you study, appear at level 4 exam. And all the exams are online. Exams happen once every month. Every month, once, roughly around 3rd week or 4th week during that week, there would be days stipulated by FPSB when the exams happen. You can book your exam and take the exam online right from your home or office. So what is the curriculum? What are you going to study? As I said, it's a 4-level program. So let us look at the curriculum level wise. So for level 1, I'm talking first. For level 1, it is also known as investment planning specialist. Investment planning specialist. So as the name suggests, all you are going to study here is primarily around investment planning, investment management. So it starts with personal financial management, where you study more about the personal finance concepts, the debit, the credit, the assets, liabilities, all that, net worth, etc. And financial market structure, financial planning principles, etc. Then you move on. You also, yes, the most important thing you study here is the time value of money, the computation, the financial maths. And then you go on into the next module, which is investment planning and asset management, where you study more about different investment products, how to manage portfolios, etc. And then the last module here is regulatory environment, which is investment laws. So the way a chartered accountant knows company law or business law, similarly, a CFP knows investment laws very well. Laws related to RBI, related to SEBI, related to IRDA, related to anti-money laundering. So likewise, you become an expert into investment planning. Then you have level 2. Level 2 has 2 modules: retirement planning and tax planning. Retirement planning is the kind of the larger financial planning method. So you see, I was giving an example of my case that, okay, you have to prepare a financial plan for me. Ultimate goal is what? That I have to achieve the financial goals in my life, and then I have to retire at certain age, because I can't keep working. Nobody can keep working all throughout the life. So if I want to retire at the age of 55 or 60, how do I achieve my goals before that? How do I lead a life after that? So that's what the whole financial plan, preparing financial plan, financial maths, retirement products, investment products, all you study in the retirement planning. And then you study about tax planning, income tax, primarily the income tax, and a bit of GST also is covered, but the larger focus remains on income tax. Income tax, again, you study for the individuals here, resident Indians, as well as the NRIs. How the tax treatments will happen, that all gets covered in the curriculum. And then you have level 3, which is risk and estate planning. So risk planning is primarily more about assessing risk assessment, risk management, insurance products, how to manage risk, mitigate risks using insurance, etc. And then you have estate planning, where you study more about the succession planning, the succession laws. And then after you have cleared level 1, 2, and 3, you finally land at the final level, CFP final, which is a certified financial planner program, end of the program, where you have 3 modules to study: financial planning process and skills, that's 1. Then you have engaging clients in the financial planning process, that's 2. And then third you have is developing financial plans, how to make the effective financial plans. So now that you have studied all about investment laws, and various other things, then in the last line, if you see, I have written capstone project and case studies. So here you go on to make a financial plan, which is based on a case, based on a kind of a live project given by FPSB USA to you. Okay, so that you want to make live and submit it to FPSB. FPSB will assess it, and then they will approve your project. And then you move on to take your exam. Exam again comprises of case studies, the similar case studies that I was saying, questions based on those case studies. That again, we're going to teach you multiple case studies, how to solve the financial planning questions. So that way, by the end of the program, you learn all of these. So to summarize, if I have to say, what is the learning outcome? If you learn all of this, what is the learning outcome? So in terms of knowledge and skills, the learning outcome is that you become kind of an expert into personal finance, wealth management, financial advisory, investment planning, tax planning, estate planning. You tend to understand investment laws very well. You understand income tax laws very well, succession laws very well. You get a mastery of financial calculator. You know how to use loan amortization tables. You know how to do tax calculations. You know how to do future value calculations. If your client says that my goal 10 years after today, 10 years from now is to achieve this much. So how do you calculate that? How do you arrive at future value of money calculation, etc.? All that you learn doing on financial calculators, using MS Excel, Microsoft Excel for financial planning, for financial calculations. You mastered time value of money like anything. You learn the core concepts of personal finance. You learn behavioral finance, behavioral biases. So a lot of it, Anupam was talking as well during this today, when he was saying that why fund managers should be investing in it, and at that point of time. So you learn about behavioral finance as well. You learn how to manage clients. Managing clients, that's the core of your business. So that also you kind of study and learn. And then at the end of it, you learn how to prepare financial plan. It's not just about selling mutual fund. It's about why somebody is buying from you. What are his goals by buying mutual funds? What is actually he's trying to achieve? So you end up preparing the whole financial plan for that person, managing portfolio, doing portfolio analysis. So these are the skills that some of the skills that you kind of master when you do a CFP program. And what happens when you master these, when you develop these skills is, in your career, you get ready for the BFSI domain, the wealth management, the brokerage houses, the tax advisory firms, the financial planning firms. You can get ready to set up your own advisory business. If you are an IFA, you multiply your business, you build your credibility. Or if you want to be an IFA, you are ready to be an IFA. You are ready to work in fintech startups, or you are ready to set up your own fintech startup. You are ready to work in the portfolio management domain, AMCs, insurance companies. Lot many of CFPs have gone on to become financial coaches, financial trainers, like Anupam. Anupam is a CFP, right? And he's the financial trainer today. They go on to become advisors, faculty, and lot many have also opted for unconventional career in finance, like journalism, like financial blogging, like becoming a YouTuber for finance. So a lot of these areas open up for you, right from typically working in the BFSI and wealth management and financial planning domain, to these unconventional career, to setting up your own business or becoming an IFA, or as an IFA multiplying your business. So all of these domains open up for you. So the point is, so if that is the learning outcome of the program, if the program is so attractive, how to study it? So to study for the program, I would say come to us. And why us is what I am going to talk today. So we, ICFP, as I said in the beginning also, ICFP is India's first and the largest education provider of financial planning standards board, USA. We are a part of Bajaj Capital Group, and Bajaj Capital Group has been a leading name in the wealth management space for 58 years. So imagine the kind of network credibility that we have built in the industry, and the kind of understanding that we possess around the financial careers, financial domain, the financial content. And CFP program, very interestingly, was brought to India by us way back in year 2002. And since then, we have been the pioneers, the undisputed #1 in the CFP program. When you come to study with us, you have the most experienced and qualified CFP faculty members teaching you. All the faculty, and when I say all, I essentially mean all. Not even one faculty would be there who doesn't come from these backgrounds. All the faculties would be CFPs, CFAs, chartered accountants, PhDs, all the respected, high profile respected backgrounds. Many of them would be practicing CFPs. So when I say practicing CFPs, somebody like Anupam, so they would be practicing CFP. So they will bring in a lot of practical elements when they come and mentor you, when they come and teach you during the program. And the most unique thing, the whole program, the academic delivery here is headed by Ms. Madhu Sinha, who herself is the Financial Planning Standards Board India Director. Now imagine FPSB board former director herself coming and teaching you live in the program. So that's the kind of incredible faculty members that we have at ICFP. Now, when it comes to the end student experience, the end student results, so again, we have probably the most notable names as our alumni. So you can Google these names, you can find out the names, or many of you are IFAs, so you know, I'm very sure when I speak out those names, you know them. So whether it's Gaurav Mashruwala, it's Dilshad Bilimoria, it's Bhuvna Sriram, it's Lovai Navlakhi, it's Suraj Sadagopan, it's Silpi Johari, Monica Halan, all of them have been our alumni. They have studied CFP program with us, right? So imagine the poster boys and girls of financial planning industry, the wealth management industry today have been our alumni. So that's the kind of credibility we have built. We have even touched 100% passing rate, though the average passing rate is around 80%, but we have even touched 100% on quite a few occasions. This I'm not saying. You can go to my LinkedIn profile, search for me, RK Singh, ICFP, you will be seeing there. FPSB India CEO Rajesh Krishnamurthy coming and congratulating me for achieving 100% results as well. So we have kind of our track record over the last 19 years. This is what we have done. Kind of, we have set our own benchmark in the CFP education. So what are the study options? if you want to study with us, what are the options? So one is the classroom, but I am not going to talk more about it because you see the red flag, they are currently suspended since COVID. So since the breakdown, since the lockdown and all happened, we consciously said that we are not going to do classroom unless and until the situations kind of is very stable all across. So we were doing classroom at Delhi and Mumbai, but otherwise we have been doing online classes all across India, and we have participants joining us from Middle East, participants joining from USA and Canada as well. So you have online classes which happen for anybody and everybody all across the world. And it's a virtual live class. When I say virtual live class, it's a class like this. The only thing is, because it's a webinar, so all of you are on mute. In the virtual class, you will be allowed to speak. You will be allowed to talk to the faculty, ask your questions. So that will be a class. That will not be a webinar. So it's a virtual live class, instructor-led live class, which will be delivered using Zoom. And then you have both the options. You have weekdays, wherein we will be teaching you Monday to Friday in the evening, 7:30 to 9:30. Monday to Friday, 7:30 to 9:30, 2 hours a day. Or you can study only on weekends, where we teach you Saturday, Sunday. Saturday late evening and Sunday early first half of the day. So you can choose as per your convenient time slot, and also depending on how much time you can give to the program, and also depending on how quickly you want to wrap up the program. Because you see, in weekdays, we're going to teach you 2 hours a day for 5 days. That means in 1 week, we will be teaching you 10 hours in a week. So that means in a month, we will be teaching you 40 hours in a month. Whereas in the weekends, we will be teaching you 2 hours a day on Saturday and Sunday. So that means 4 hours a week. So that means 8 hours on the complete month. So 8 hours vis-a-vis 40 hours, right? So sorry, 16 hours, 2 hours Saturday, Sunday. So 16 hours vis-a-vis 40 hours. So that time gap is there. So you need to see how quickly you want to run, you be through with the program. If you want to be very quick, and if you can also spare out some time on the weekdays, join us on weekdays. If you want to study only on weekends, you can take out some time on Saturday evening and Sunday morning, join us for weekends. So weekdays or weekends is absolutely your choice. We do not make that distinction. Whatever class you attend, all the classes are recorded, and every single class recording is shared with you as well for review. And unlike what Anupam was saying, the video recording is there for 1 week or so. Here, the recording is with you for 1 year. So in 1 year, you view the program, you view the class as many times as you wish. You review the whole video so that you practice, you master the concepts. And then the other option is e-learning session. E-learning is primarily a pre-recorded video. The same faculty members who teach you in the live class, the same faculty members have pre-recorded a video in the studio separately, not with the class. Separately in the studio, they have pre-recorded a class, and that is given to you. This model is primarily advisable to the people who ideally have some experience. So like a chartered accountant, he has some experience. He says a CFA, he has some experience, so he can manage it on his own. Okay, so that's one. It's a DIY kind of a model, do it yourself kind of a model, wherein we are giving you the content. You will have to brush up and study on your own pace. So you have to choose whether virtual or e-learning, weekdays or weekends, absolutely your choice. But whatever you choose, whether weekdays, weekends, virtual or e-learning or whatever, rest assured, when you are coming to ICOFP, you're gonna get India's most comprehensive CFP study materials. And when I say India's most comprehensive, I really mean it, because you can compare it with any other study materials available today. So what we're gonna give you today is one concept books. So 10 modules, you will be getting concept books, the printed books that we will give you. Nobody gives you the printed books. Even FPSB does not give you a printed book. FPSB gives you some content online, which you cannot download, you cannot save, you cannot copy. You have to just study online. Whereas our books are printed physical books with you. We will give you printed physical workbooks where you have umpteen number of questions for you to practice. Okay, so that you master the concept. The more you practice, you master the concept. Then you do group projects with your batch where you study in. You have as I said, all the classes are recorded, so they are given to you, so you can review the videos as many times as you wish. You can master the concepts, revise the concept. For each level, you will have mock test, wherein before the exam, you can take the mock test yourself. You can see how prepared you are. The similar exam where what you give for we give with FPSB, the similar exams are kind of given to you in the simulated environment by us as well. Then during the class, you do assignments, you have doubt clearing sessions wherein our experts come and explain you. They have taught you throughout the class, they have helped you with the doubt, but then even before exam, they will have exclusive doubt clearing sessions with you, so that they kind of brush up before the exam as well, so that any last minute glitches, if you have last minute questions, you have, that doesn't go unanswered. And then you do case studies. As I said, last exam is based on case studies. So you do case studies with us, you do projects with us, and you have guest lectures happening. Somebody like Anupam, somebody like Lovai Navlakhi, Suresh Sadagopan, Silpi, all these people coming and talking to you live during the class. So esteemed people, esteemed knowledge with most comprehensive CFP study material. That's what we want to offer you. The next question can be, so, well, this is a great program to do. This is an amazing thing to do. All of us are excited to do, want to do. ICFP is going to teach us. ICFP is going to give us the best study material. So what are the program fees? So the fees you pay are in fact two distinct fees. One fee is that you pay to FPSB USA board. Okay. One fee is that you pay to FPSB USA board, and the other fees you pay to us for teaching you for the program. So you pay me the study fees, and the rest you pay to FPSB. So what are those fees? Let us have a look. So fee that you pay to FPSB USA is, one, the registration fee. This is a one-time fee. You pay for one time, and then this registration is valid for one full year. What is that fee? That is $165. Okay, so that fee is $165. The second is content subscription fee. Content, as I said, they will give you some online content to study. Though if you study with us, you do not need to study that content, but FPSB has made it a mandate that everybody has to get the content, so you will have to get the content. So the content you buy with them is $60 each for level 1 to 3 and $120 for CFP final. This you do at approximately 1 to 2 month time. Okay, so meaning to say, after you have done level 1 content, approximately after 2 months or 3 months of time, you will be doing the level 2 content. So there will be a break. It's not that all of this fee you have to pay in one go. The fee is actually paid in a very staggered manner. Then comes the examination fee. Again, for each level, it's $61 each. For the final level, it's $122. Again, this is again paid in staggered manner. It's not that all of this $305 what you see is the total fee is you have to pay in one go. No, $61 for level 1 examination, study for level 2. Then after you are done with study, book your examination for level 2, you pay $61 again. Likewise, it happens. So the whole of this fee gets paid in multiple installments. And then you have, as I said, CFP program has 4-in-1 certification. So the first 3 certifications are called a specialist certification. So for getting those specialist certification, you have to pay $100. This is again one-time fee, $100 for all 3, not $100 for each, $100 for all 3. You pay $100, you get all 3 certificates. So that is one. And then after you complete the whole of program, you get your CFP charter, your CFP membership. For that, you pay $120. So that's the fee which you pay to FPSB USA. This is, again, let me emphasize, this is paid in installments in a very staggered manner, all across almost 8 to 10 months or a year. Okay, so it's a very staggered payment. Don't look at these whatever $800 or $900 which come as the total figure. Don't look at that it is one-time payment. No, it is paid in that way, in that staggered way. So that's FPSB fees. What you gonna pay us is the fee that you pay to us is for teaching you. Okay, now it's your choice whether you want to join us for level 1, level 2 separately. Like FPSB has level 1 price $60, level 2 $60 likewise. Similarly, we have level 1. If you want to study only level 1 with us, only level 1, in the virtual, you have to pay 15,000 rupees virtual class, and we will be teaching you live. So if I can annotate that, I can explain you well. So you pay me this for level 1 and we teach you live. For level 1, if you want e-learning, you pay 11,000 rupees and we give you the e-learning content for level 1. So that way is you can join us for each of these levels, level wise as well. So level 2 is lesser price, level 3 is lesser price, final level is again higher. So you can join us level wise, or you can join us all of this in one go as well. The benefit for you is if you join all of this in one go, then you end up saving here a decent amount. If you sum up these level-wise fee, it comes to 55,000 rupees in virtual and 40,000 rupees in e-learning. Whereas when you opt for this 4-in-1 bundle that I am enrolling for the full program to study at ICFP, then what you pay in virtual is just 37,500. That means you essentially save close to 47%. And then e-learning, you again pay only 27,500, which again means you end up saving almost close to 45%. So that's a decent saving for you if you enroll for the whole CFP program, the full program in one go. That saves your money. So because all of you have joined today, we have kind of explained you all about CFP program. We have tried our best to enlighten you about CFP, the advantages that it has, how it can open up multiple opportunities for you, and what kind of knowledge and skills you can build. So if you are seriously interested, if you want to kind of build credibility, multiply your career growth, if you want to learn those skills that I was talking about, if you want to join CFP program, join us today. Don't delay, don't procrastinate. If you join us today, you're gonna get lot more than what I shared earlier, that you end up saving 47% or 45% on the 4-in-1 program. Other than that, that is always there. But other than that, if you join us today, you get a discounted fee as well. In the virtual, that 37,500 becomes 32,500 for you for today. Let me emphasize, for today, that becomes 32,500 for you. In the e-learning, that 27,500 becomes 22,500 for you today. 27,500 becomes 22,500. So you end up saving 5,000 rupees if you join today. That's one. Second, not only this, you also get a 50% discount on FPSB content fee. If you remember, I was saying that FPSB content fee is there, $60 for level 1, 2, 3, and $120 for the final level. On that, you get 50% discount. We will give you a discount code which you will apply on FPSB website, and FPSB will directly reduce your fee when you pay them, right? So that will save you $150, which means essentially approximately 12,000 rupees. So 5,000 rupees discount from us, then 12,000 rupees a discount from us, which will save your fees on the FPSB side. So essentially 17,000 rupees what you end up saving if you join the program today. And the best part is you do not have to pay all of this money, 32,500 or 20,500 rupees today. We have a student loan arrangements available, that too 0% interest student loan. All you have to pay is certain processing charges they take from you, but it's a 0% interest, this thing. And all you do is you pay just 10% of the fee today. 10% of virtual is 3,250. 10% of e-learning is 2,250. So you pay only 10% of the fee today, balance in 6 easy EMIs through the student loan arrangement. So that's the best offer for you today. Join us today. You save your fees, saving the total fee 4-in-1. You are already saved 45%. On top of that 45%, you save another 5,000 rupees as a discount for joining us today. Then on top of that, you get 12,000 worth of discount vouchers, which you apply and get rebate from your PSB fees. And then you get 0% student free loans. So that's the offer for you today, gentlemen. If you have been thinking to be a full-fledged financial planner, if you have been thinking to augment your business, augment your career, augment your financial practice, look at CFP as an option for you. Join us today. What you have to do is call us on this number. I will request Kanhaiya and Krishan, if you can type this number in the chat box as well. Call us on this number. My team is there to help you. 9711437779. Let me repeat, 9711437779. Call us on this number. My team is there to help you. They'll guide you, they will handhold you, and they will allow you to join the program today. We are more than happy to have you. So that's all I had. I can see some questions in the chat. So let me take those questions. Company secretary and LLB and MCOM, any exemption? Vikasji, there is no exemption now. FPSB board has done away with that exemption pattern now completely. You have to take all the exams. There is no examination exemption at all. There is an exemption on education, okay, education, but no exemption on examination. You have to pay the fees, you have to study, you have to pass the exams, okay. Deepak Sareen ji, so I've explained you the cost of the course. Senior citizen Deepak ji, sorry sir, the FPSB board doesn't differentiate in that. The cost of course that I explained you, and that too on top of that you end up saving if you join today. So that's the best deal you have. Can we consider it KG to degree class for MFD? Yeah, it's that. Jaswinder ji, you very rightly said it's a very kind of credibility building program. It's truly a KG to degree class. It has all that you need. Can we switch between weekdays and weekends? Yes, Narayanan ji, you can switch during the weekdays and weekend program at any point of time. The only thing is we will just see what module you are in. So meaning to say, if you are studying level 1 and then you want to move to level 2 the next, so there can be a time gap of certain 2, 3, 4, 5 days, whatever, so that we put you in the next program at the right time. But yes, this is allowed. You can switch. Is there any placement being offered through this program? So Chaitali, because many working professionals join, so we do not keep placement as a part of the offering. But if yes, we also know that many students join. So when you complete your, let me emphasize, when you complete your CFP certification, we kind of put you into that network and help you get placed. So we give you that assistance. The reason being because, as I said, we have been in the industry for 58 years, our parent company. So we have that network, we have that connections where we kind of help you network and get through. What if I don't want to go for exam just for learning person? Still fees will be the same. So Amolji, if you do not want to go for exam, then your entire FPSB fees are waived off. They are not there. All you have to pay is the fee to us. And that fee will be there because I am anyways giving you a lot many discount, as I explained. Book material, what is the cost? Book material is included in the cost. All those books, those 10 books, 10 concept books and 8 workbooks and then projects, everything is included in the cost. So there is no separate thing that we're going to ask you. How to make payment? Vinayak Banekar. Krishan, if you can make note of these names, Vinayak Banekar ji, Krishan will call you and help you making the payment. He'll give you an online discount by FPSB. Okay, so Rajesh Mishra ji, discount on FPSB fees is on behalf of ICFP, but it will be applicable only when I give you the code. Okay, so discount will not be from FPSB. It will be actually through ICFP because we are subsidizing it. Timing of for week and weekend classes. So Mr. Venkat, for timing for weekday classes is 7:30 to 9:30 Monday to Friday. And for weekend classes is weekend, we have Saturday, multiple batches. So Saturday, there is a time slot of 5:30 to 7:30, 5 to 7, and there is a slot of 7:30 to 9:30. And Sunday, there are again multiple slots, 9 to 11 and 11:30 to 1:30. So I don't know which slot your batch begins at. So there are multiple slots in the weekend. Mangalam sir, okay, thank you. Is it possible to make payment tomorrow? Vinayak Banekar ji, yes, you can make payment tomorrow. The only thing is tomorrow I won't be able to give you that offer because if this promo code that I was saying, this offer we kind of tie up with FPSB wherein we say that, okay, if students enroll us today, we're going to subsidize it. We're going to give you that offer. So that we will not be able to make you. Otherwise, you can join me anytime. 3-year diploma, 4-year MFD experience valid for, yes, 4-year MFD is valid for CFP certification. Okay, any work from home opportunities after level 1? After level 1, I can help you get into internship opportunities, Purnima ji, but not the permanent opportunities, but I can help you do internship opportunities, yes. Harsh Vasi, I got my MFD code recently. Will I have to wait for 3 years? No, you will not have to wait for 3 years. I said that if you do not have 3 years experience, then the other route is 1 year of articleship. supervised articleship under a CFP. And I also shared that the faculties you're going to teach you, they are all practicing CFPs. So we kind of map you under one of those faculties, and they help you complete your 1 year of articleship. So after 1 year, you get your certificate. So Mr. Venkat, yeah, 7:30 to 9:30 evening, I'm saying PM. Yeah, thank you so much. Sorry, I missed that. So 7:30 to 9:30 evening. When is the next batch going to start in November? Pooja, again, Krishan would be the right person. Krishan, if you can call Miss Pooja and tell her when is the next batch going to start. So we have a weekday batch starting, I think, on Tuesday, and a weekend batch starting, I think, in the 3rd or 4th week of October. So that Krishan would be able to confirm you. Today, up to what time we have to pay? You pay up to 11, 11:30, 12. Up to 12, it's today only. So don't worry. My team is there. Even if you call at 11:30, they're going to respond you. Trust me. Will you help getting 1 year articles? Because I explained you, Ms. Prabjot, that we help you because the coaches are going to be practicing CFP. So we map you with them and they help you do this. Mr. Venkat is asking which number should I call for getting the payment link. This number, which is there on your screen, Mr. Venkat, which is there on the screen on the slide, 9711437779. Vaishali fees. Vaishali, I've already explained you the fees, the PSB fees and study fees with us as well. Still, Krishan, again, you can call Miss Vaishali and explain her the fees if she has any further questions. Mr. Venkat is already a CFP. His wife wants to join. Thank you so much, Mr. Venkat. Yeah, she is always welcome. Please. Perfect. So with that, I think we are complete with the session, and I do not see any further queries in the chat box and no further hand raises. So Kanaya, can we sign off now?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So once again, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. And I really look forward to having all of you in our CFP batches, in the CFP sessions. I would be more than excited. I am the one who normally comes to see you on the orientation as well. I would love to see many of your faces on the orientation, talk more about CFP and how we can coach you further. So lovely having you all today in this session, and goodbye. See you again.
Thank you, sir.